Good day, Deep Inward family. Welcome to day 162 of our Bible study review. Today we're going through chapters 22 through 23 of the book of Ezekiel. In yesterday's reading, we left off with Yahuah asking Ezekiel, will you judge the elders? And today we will see, he tells Ezekiel, will you judge the bloody city, the city of Jerusalem? He wants Ezekiel to set his face against Jerusalem and to speak to her all of her sins. From verse 1, it says, moreover, the word of Yahuah came to me, saying, now you, son of man, will you judge? Will you judge the bloody city? Indeed, you shall show her all of her abominations. Then say, thus says Yahuah Elohim, the city sheds blood in her midst, that her time may come, and makes idols against herself to defile herself. You have become guilty in your blood that you have shed, and have defiled yourself with your idols which you have made. And you have caused your day to draw near, and have come to your years. He is saying to Jerusalem through his prophet Ezekiel that you have made your judgment come sooner, right? When people partake in sin, and then sin unravels and you start filling up the cup of iniquity, he says, you've made judgment day come faster for yourselves. Then Yahuah speaks through Ezekiel and says that he will make Jerusalem a reproach. When Jerusalem, right, all of Israel was really just this city of splendor, and it was the nation where all other nations would come and see of their glory, right? And we saw the height of this with King Solomon, all right? But after Solomon, we saw the glory depart from the people. And why did the glory depart? It's because they departed from his righteous laws. That is the key. That's what we need to understand, right? He's asking Ezekiel, will you judge the bloody city? Now we're going to see that this reads out like a court case, because our Heavenly Father is the judge, and he uses his prophets to speak those judgments within the earth. All right, so we're going to see exactly what they're guilty of. And it says right here, starting in verse 6, the princes of Israel in you, everyone according to his power, have been bent on shedding blood. So the princes are the kings, and the kings have shed blood. And he says this, and you, they have treated father and mother lightly, right? They're transgressing even the 10 commandments. They're not honoring their mothers and their fathers. And it says, in your midst they have dealt with the stranger by oppression. In you they have vexed the fatherless and the widows. You have despised my holy things and have profaned my Sabbaths. In you are men who carry slanders to shed blood. In you they eat at the mountain shrines. So he's saying, you're not eating at the place where I tell you to eat. He says, you are sacrificing to these demons, and you're eating on these high places. You're not eating the sacrifices of me, is what he's saying. Let's continue. In verse 10, he says, and in you they have uncovered their father's nakedness. All right. So this is the sin of Reuben. Reuben went up to his father Israel's concubine and laid with one of his wives. And he's saying this is running rampant within the southern kingdom of Judah. And he says, in you they have humbled her who was unclean in her menstrual impurity. So men are laying with women during their cycles when they are supposed to have this time of rest and cleansing their bodies. The men are not even giving them a chance to have that time of impurity. Verse 11, this is another accusation. One has committed abomination with his neighbor's wife. So they're not only coveting their neighbor's wife, but they're committing abominations with her. And it says, another one has lewdly defiled his daughter-in-law. Look, all kinds of defilement is taking place in the land. And he says, and another in you has humbled his sister, his father's daughter. They're sleeping with everybody, all right? They're doing what the Gentiles do, right? And it says, in you, you have taken bribes to shed blood. All right. Therefore, I have struck my hand towards your dishonest gain, which you have made, and towards your blood, which has been in your midst. Can your heart endure, or can your hands be strong in the days that I shall deal with you? I, Yahuah, have spoken and will do it. I will scatter you among the nations and disperse you in the countries and consume your filthiness out of you. He's saying, I will use the rod and I will spank you so hard that you'll never do these things again. He says, you shall profane yourself in the sight of the nations, and you shall know that I am Yahuah. The next portion of reading through verses 17 through 22, he likens the people of Jerusalem to metals, silver, gold, bronze. And he says, I'm throwing you all in the furnace. I'm throwing you all in the fire. And so the purpose of him speaking of this is because precious metals go through this. They go through the fire. And everything that is unuseful, it gets burnt off. And then the part that is timeless, the part that still stands, even though it went through the fire, that's the part that's good. And that's what he's saying he's going to do to his people. He is going to refine them so that all that is left is the righteous, good standing parts. And now the next portion is the indictment of the leaders, the prophets and the priests. Let's read how this goes right here in verse 23. The word of Yahuah came to me saying, Son of man, say to her, you are the land that is not cleansed nor rained upon in the day of indignation. There is conspiracy of her prophets in her midst like a roaring lion, ravaging the prey. They have devoured souls. They have taken the treasure and precious things. They have made many widows in her midst. Her priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. They have made no distinction between the holy and the profane, nor have they shown the difference between the unclean and the clean, and they have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. Her officials in her midst are like wolves, ravaging the prey by shedding blood and destroying lives in order to obtain dishonest gain. This is a case against all leaders, the princes, the kings, right? The prophets and the priest. The job of a priest is to know what is holy and what is unclean. And we need to know that we are called his priesthood. We too are to know what is holy and what is not, what is clean and what is not, what is righteous, what is fit for the kingdom and what is not. And we are to apply that, practice that in our lives, and we are to disciple others in the same truths. And when we fall short of that, our Messiah will say, depart from me, I don't know you. If we deny our job titles, which is priesthood, if we deny the task that we have been given, he will deny us from having the opportunity of ruling and reigning as his priesthood in the millennial reign. At the end of chapter 22, Yahuah says he was looking for a man to build up righteous walls, but instead they were building walls, right? And they were securing it with unfinished mortar, right? This is called whitewashing the wall, right? So this looks like it's a strong wall, but it's not. It is built on lies. It is built on lawlessness. Therefore, the wall will come down and Jerusalem will be consumed. Now let's open up chapter 23 and see what Yahuah has to say about all of Israel. Israel used to be one kingdom, but they were split into two. And now he calls these two kingdoms two sisters. So let's open up and start reading from verse 1. It says, the word of Yahuah came again to me saying, Son of man, there were two women, the two daughters of one mother, and they committed harlotries in Egypt. They committed their harlotries in their youth. So he's saying their falling away did not start when I made them a kingdom, right? He says their falling away started in Egypt, all right? And it says there, their breasts were pressed, and there their virgin bosom was handled. Their names were Oholah, the elder, and Oholibah, her sister, and they were mine, and they bore sons and daughters. As for their names, Samaria is Oholah, and it says Jerusalem is Oholibah. So this is the two kingdoms, aka the two sisters. So in this allegory of the sisters playing the harlot, he says now Oholah, who is Samaria, she played the harlot with the Assyrians. She saw the royalty of these kings, and then she made covenants. She made agreements with the Assyrians. And then later on, the Assyrians were the ones who actually hated her. They came and they conquered her and dispersed her, right? So that's what he's saying in the first part of talking about the elder sister, Oholah. And now let's read about Oholibah, which is Jerusalem. And it says, now her sister Oholibah saw this, but she was more corrupt in her inordinate love than she, and in her harlotries more than her sister in her harlotries. So Judah, the southern kingdom, saw how the 10 northern tribes were taken away, and they knew why she was taken away, and it's because of their falling away. It's because of their sins, right? They were offering up their children to Molech, and they had idols, and they were adapting the ways of the nations, and they truly loved the Assyrians. But see, the Assyrians did not care for her. The Assyrians deceived her because they would come and conquer her and disperse her. And so Judah saw this. Judah saw this, right? If you remember that Sennacherib came down and King Hezekiah was fearful of all that the Assyrians had already done. They had already taken away her sister, right? And now they're coming down to take her away. But the Assyrians failed in their attempt to conquer the southern kingdom of Judah. Yah would not allow that to happen because it was not meant for them to carry her away. It was meant for Babylon to carry her away. So let's continue reading in verse 14 and see that this is true. We already know because this is what is happening. As we are reading the book of Ezekiel, he's already in Babylon, all right? But there are still a few who are left in Jerusalem who are yet to be carried off. Verse 14, so she increased her harlotries, and she saw men portrayed on the wall, the images of the Chaldeans portrayed with vermilion, girded with belts on their loins, exceedingly dyed attire on their heads, all of them looking like officials after the manner of the Babylonians of Chaldea and the land of their nativity. And as soon as she saw them with her eyes, she lusted after them and sent messengers to them into Chaldea. Now, I don't know if you remember, but King Hezekiah sent letters to Babylon, and they came, right, and comforted Hezekiah because he was sick. He was on his deathbed, but he prayed to Yah and he recovered, right? And so we see that King Hezekiah was trying to make a political alliance with the Babylonians, right? And he brought them in, allowed them to see everything in his house and everything that was in the house of Yah. And then Isaiah rebuked him and said these things. Let's just go to Isaiah chapter 39 and read it in verse 5. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the word of Yahuah Sabaoth. The days are surely coming when all that is in your house and that which your father have laid up in store until this day shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, says Yahuah. And you can find the same truth in 2 Kings chapter 20. They both link up at the same time, right? Because King Hezekiah was fearful of the Assyrians. He was then trying to make a political alliance with Babylon. And all of these attempts backfired on all of the children of Israel because they refused to obey their own God and they refused to execute right judgments. Everyone that they placed their trust in backfired on them. Now let's continue back in chapter 23, verse 17 of Ezekiel. It says, the Babylonians came into her bed of love, and they defiled her with her harlotry, and she was polluted with them, and her soul became disgusted with them. So she uncovered her harlotries and uncovered her nakedness. Then my soul became disgusted with her, and my soul became disgusted with her sister. So this is the Father speaking, saying his soul loathed the two of them because they fell away and they placed their trust in other kingdoms and in their political alliances. They stopped trusting in their own husband. And so as a result of this, he says that he is going to allow all of her lovers who she placed her trust in to actually be those who come and take her away, strip her of her riches, strip her of everything to where she lays bare and naked and she's no longer full of glory. And then he says that Oholibah, Jerusalem, will drink of the same cup of Oholah. She will also be scattered. Let's pick up in verse 36. Yahuah, moreover, said to me, Son of man, will you judge Oholah and Oholibah? Then declare to them their abominations, for they have committed adultery, and blood is in their hands. Thus with their idols they have committed adultery, and have also caused their sons, in whom they bore to me, to pass through the fire for them as food. Again, this is an abomination, offering up your children, sacrificing your children. Y'all, we need to understand when their blood is shed, it is shed to feed demons in the spirit. This is an absolute absolute truth that we need to understand. All right. Verse 38, he says, moreover, they have done this to me. They have defiled my sanctuary, and the same day they have profaned my Sabbaths. For when they had slain their children to their idols, then they came the same day into my sanctuary to profane it. They were shameless. They didn't care anymore. They still came into his house while they were entering houses of demons and offering up the fruit of their womb to other gods, aka demons, because there's no other God. All right. And he says right here in verse 40, therefore they have sent for men to come from afar, to whom a messenger was sent, and they came. For them you washed yourself. For them you painted your eyes and decked yourself with ornaments. And you sat on a stately couch with a table prepared before it, on which you had set my incense and my oil. So he's likening them again to a cheating wife, right? She doesn't dress herself up for her own husband. She waits for her husband to leave, and then she paints her eyes. Then she puts on perfume. Then she cooks a meal, and she offers it to another man. And so at the very end, Yahuah says, when I cause those whom she trusted in to strip her bare of all of her fine linen, of all of her perfume, her oils, all of the gold, the silver, when I strip her down to nothing, will she still commit her harlotries? He says, I will stop this lewdness from happening. I will stop her harlotries from happening. He says, I will make you pay for your crimes. I will make you pay for violating the covenant. You said yes to my covenant, yet you said no in your actions. He goes, I will make you pay for it, and then you will stop your harlotries. And then you will no longer forget that I am your husband, right? He says, you will know that I am Yahuah, right? If we read the 10 Commandments before he gives a command, he says, I am Yahuah. I am the one who brought you out from your captivity, from your enslavement to Egypt. That's the first thing that he wanted them to know, that he alone was their God. Well, essentially, he alone is their husband. These chapters read as a court case because it is. The judge, who is the father, who is the husband, is judging his wicked, abominable wife. We need to see the parallels of the very end. That is why Messiah will tell many who come to him and call him Lord, Lord, and he will say, depart from me. I don't know you, right? Because you partook of the blood of my covenant, yet you are not upholding these righteous standards. You prove by your works that you do not know me, right? We need to see the parallels. This is the same message. Deep in Word family, that's all that I have for you today. Until tomorrow, Yah bless.